When weather conditions aren't working in our favour, sometimes it can be difficult to find the motivation to go out and shoot. But today I've brought with me a neat little photography tool that will allow me to take interesting photos whatever the conditions. For the most part of the day it's been blue skies, and I've spent that time looking for locations and subjects that I can revisit in better conditions. So this is day one of my 30-day spring photography project, where I go out and photograph the wonders of my local landscape for 30 consecutive days. And it's got off to an absolutely flying start, because throughout the early hours of this morning we have some incredible aurora activity here, like nothing I've ever seen this far south. It was just incredible. I'm still buzzing now with excitement. It was such a privilege to be able to start the project in such an awesome way. Yeah, it was a long night for sure, but it was just incredible. It was an unbelievable experience and a pure privilege to be able to shoot the aurora so close to home. It was just brilliant. So today I'm looking for close-in subjects that will avoid the clear skies that we've got, subjects that I can use this neat little photography tool to get a different perspective on the landscape. But before we get onto that, I think there might be a subject just down here that's caught my eye. What's drawn me to this particular scene is colour, really. These stems of these young plants here next to this babbling stream look amazing. Very, very light green tones to them. The sun's just dropped behind the hillside there now, so things are quite flat in here, which actually works quite well for this. What I'm going to do is use the panning motion, the tilting motion should I say, on the back of my tripod head. And I'm just going to pan up through the exposure. Because it's a fairly slow shutter speed at 20th of a second, it's just going to show a little bit of that motion as we move the camera. You could do this handheld. However, when I've got it locked on the tripod, my framing is going to be the same every single time. So basically the only thing I need to change is either the shutter speed or the speed in which I move the camera, basically. So it just keeps things on a level playing field. So when I get back, I can choose my favourite one. So I've got the 2-second timer on, and I'm just going to move the camera up through the exposure. And I think what I might do actually is just stop my aperture down to f9 and just go for a slightly longer shutter speed. That's the 13th of a second. So yeah, I think this type of photography is all about expressing your creativity, seeing into the landscape and looking at something in a different way, which is always really refreshing. Hope you like this image, and then we'll crack on and talk about this photography tool that can really transform your photos when it's a blue sky or very drab weather like we've got today. So I really like that last composition. Just a little bit of movement to add some interest, but not completely blurring out the subject. So I think I found an area just down here where I can demonstrate this a neat little photography tool. So let's get set up down here. So I think this area here is particularly interesting. Got a lot of these wood anemone dotted around on this embankment. And because there's an embankment here, I can set up my tripod without having to get down in the dirt on my hands and knees. Because what I want to do is focus in on these wonderful wood anemone. I think they look fantastic. Beautiful soft white petals with a yellow centre. I love the greens as well that surround them. So I'm really getting in close to these subjects. Now, my lens does have a fairly close focus, minimum focusing distance, but not close enough for these subjects, which is where the cheap photography tool will come into play. So to get close to your subject, you will need a macro lens, but if like me, you don't own a dedicated macro lens, then you can use one of these very, very cheap adapters. So basically a macro extension tube allows the lens to focus closer than its usual minimum focusing distance, thus increasing the magnification of the subject. It's essentially a hollow tube that sits between the camera body and the lens, increasing the distance between them and enabling the lens to focus closer. So the extension tube itself doesn't contain any optics, and its length determines the amount of extension that can be achieved. Generally, the longer the extension tube, the greater the magnification of your subject. I've got a set of two here. One of them's 10mm, the other is 16mm, but you can stack them if you want to get even closer to your subject. Now, I've had these for a couple of years now, and I've never had any issues with them. They've been great. They only cost about £20. If I can find a link, I'll try and leave it in the description for you, but like I say, these are a couple of years old now. But to fit them, it's dead easy. You just take the lens off, pop this onto your body, and then attach the lens onto the front. And these have also got electronic connections, so you can get autofocus as well. The benefit of these tubes is that if you're like me and you're just experimenting with macro photography, it's such a cheap entry point because you can convert any of your existing lenses to a macro lens, and it gets you started, gets you being creative without investing a ton of money. I think these are great and definitely give us different subjects to shoot when conditions are perhaps not perfect for the wider scene. So I've got everything set up. I've got two macro tubes on, so equivalent to 26mm extension, and then about 150mm on the 7300. Which is very nice on the f6.4 and a 40th of a second. And I've just bumped my ISO up to 200 just to allow me to get the shutter speed up to 40th of a second, because there's a slight bit of movement now and again in the flowers, and I just wanted to freeze that motion. And 40th of a second seems to be able to do that. To say, there's not a huge amount of wind. Very simple framing, I think. That's all it needs, and a very, very soft focus. So even at f6.4, because we're using these macro tubes and we're so zoomed in, everything's so soft. It's only the very center of the plant, center of the flower, that's actually sharp. So yeah, I think this is a great way of experimenting and finding a different subject when conditions aren't probably at their best. So I think that was an okay shot, nothing amazing, but I'm just really experimenting and trying different things, and it's definitely opened up a new world of possibilities. Just look at this area here, completely chock full of bluebells and beech trees, which is a fantastic combination. In a week or two, these will be in full bloom, so I'm definitely coming back here for that. Woohoo, what a find. By the way, if you're interested in following along with my spring photography project, every Sunday I'll be writing a blog style newsletter sharing the highs and the lows of the week. The link for the newsletter is down in the description. There's also a free photography course you can watch when you sign up for the newsletter, all about how I use photography filters in the landscape, such as using the polarizer and ND filters for long exposures, that type of thing. Anyway, I've got to get a wiggle on as the sun is starting to drop. I want to find a photograph for sunset. Well, what a spot we've got here, looking through the canopy of this woodland here. Absolutely amazing. So I've had to quickly backpedal up the slope. I was initially set up down there. I've had to backpedal because I want to get a bit more elevation so I can exclude some of the valley floor out of this composition, because it's very, very dark and there's not a huge amount going on down there. But what I do like about this frame here is the branches that reach across the top and fill the top part of the frame. It means that they add a bit of interest to the otherwise, fairly featureless sky, if you like. I think this is going to work well, but I think maybe one of the issues I have is the trees are going to be silhouetted because the sky is so bright, but I think I'm actually fine with that. I think there's a lovely glow as well looking out on the horizon. There's got some beautiful pastel tones to the sea and the sky, just got that beautiful graduation from blue through to purple through to orange. So I've positioned the peninsula in the background as best I can to make sure the tree branches that are overhanging don't creep into that part of the scene. I think it would make it feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I've allowed a little bit of space all around. So when we're looking through these trees, we get that sense of tranquility and calmness, the chaos of the woodland and the calmness beyond. That's what I'm going for anyway. In terms of camera settings, I'm at 30th of a second, f8, ISO 125 on the 16-55 lens, and I'm zoomed right in at 55mm. So actually, while the light's hitting the embankment on the other side there, I'm going to take a shot. 2-second timer is on, as always. Yeah, I quite like that shot, I think. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing this project is to help me leave my preconceived ideas at home. So basically I go out and shoot whatever the weather and be prepared to adapt and be more receptive to the landscape. And I'm sure if I can do this, my photography will improve. Well, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. I'm also hoping to make a high quality zine at the end of it, showing the story of the 30-day project. So it'll be really interesting to see where that leads as well. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out this video that's over here for more landscape photography adventures? And if you really liked it, be sure to hit the thumbs up, because that really helps to put these videos in front of more people. And consider subscribing to my newsletter for updates about the project. Anyway guys, take care, and I'll see you all next week.